Districting effort, number one. But clearly there's a larger pattern and practice about what's going on here, the corruption, the abuse of power. And when it comes to our attack on voting rights, right, we've seen executive orders coming out of the White House that would restrict how people can register to vote, the purging of voter rolls, et cetera. There's already a Department of Justice-led effort trying to get voter information, sensitive voter information from states to tee up their purging of voter rolls to influence next year's election. There's legislation in Congress, the SAVE Act, which we've successfully blocked to date in the United States Senate, that would make it harder for people to register and re-register to vote. But this redistricting, mid-decade redistricting, sheer power grab is part of that comprehensive strategy that we're up against.
So I agree 1,000% with where your head is on this for a number of reasons. And the first is a question that, you know, Simone sort of triggers in my head from what she's put on the table and your actions. Who told Texas Republicans to do this? Folks, y'all need to understand. I know a little bit about this space because I
don't know if he's going to say it. Michael Steele is. I'm going to say it. Michael Steele is the reason that Republicans control so many state legislatures today. The Red Map Project from 2010. That's how they grabbed all these state legislatures and grabbed all the power. And even though they ain't won the popular vote except in 2 elections out of the last 25 years.
You win the ones that matter.
Okay, just want to put it on the table.
And the ones that matter is state legislatures because they're the ones that draw the maps. That's why I targeted and won 1,000 legislative seats in 2010. That's the political calculation. But here's where, for me, this becomes important. Because, Senator, as you know, there is a process. We do this every 10 years. It's laid out in our Constitution and in our documents how this process should work. You have now a political party that's interrupting that or breaking that process by injecting, for purely political purposes, as you said, gaining and controlling power. So I agree with what you and your fellow colleagues want to do by going after Republicans, getting the oversight in place, because whether it's you or them, breaking the process is the problem, and that's what we go after. The third point I want to put on, I don't really have a question for you. I'm just going to put this on the table so you can do what you want with it. The third point I want to make is, if I'm a Democratic governor and the DGA, I'm having a meeting with every other Democratic governor. I'm saying, y'all, I want y'all to find 3. I want you to find 3 seats in your states, 5 seats in your state, because that's what the Republicans are doing. Texas is the tip of the iceberg. This is incrementalism. You're going to see 3, 5, 7, 8 seats popping up, and suddenly, instead of a 5-seat majority they're going for, it's a 40-seat majority over 6 states. So that's where I see this. How do you see this in light of what you're saying? Not just the legal stuff, but the political piece that you're trying to also wrap into.
And can you speak to, can California actually add seats? Because they have an independent redistricting commission that was created by a ballot initiative.
A lot of Democratic states do. They were trying to do the right thing.
I mean, baby, they done asymmetry.
And to that point, Senator, y'all going to have to break some eggs here.
All right, you put it on the table.
Cook it up now.
Toss me the softball, now let me swing.
There you go. All right? Go for it.
So it's not an if conversation. This conversation's happening. And not just in California, where, yes, there's a redistricting commission, so there may be a little bit of a workaround. In an ideal world, Texas stands down. I think that's where the attention is, calling it out, shaming Texas to do this and not respect something like the Voting Rights Act and how you create these districts. That's a real deal, a real threat. But if Texas goes there, given the stakes of what's happening nationally, the corruption, the chaos, the damage to working families and our national security, California's going to have to fight fire with fire, and so are other states.
But Texas has gone there. They put a map out today. There's no indication that they're not. The
legislature hasn't voted. The governor hasn't signed it. I'm going to hope for the best, but I'm going to prepare for the worst. So California's talking. Other states are talking that way, too, because Republicans have not been shy. They're going to start with Texas, but there's already a list out there of who could be next.
Yeah.
But, again, it's all because clearly their policy agenda, their actions in Congress today are so unpopular with the American people. This is their last gasp of holding on to power after the midterms.
it might be their first gasp because, as you said, there's other states. I think what Republicans are very good at, you tell me if I'm wrong, of testing things, right? This feels like a test, right? This is the canary in the coal mine, where if it goes through, you guys, bang the table. But if there's not actual action after the case, then what's to stop them from doing it in all types of states? And like the chairman said, now they have a 40-seat majority instead of 6.
Right. Well, again, so if Republicans go there, I believe Democrats can and should go there as well. And however it shakes out, it's time to keep organizing.
How do they do it in California?
Next year for the elections.
Because how do they do it in California? Because current state legislative members that I've spoken to say they feel like they might have to maybe cave to Republicans on voter ID to get them to vote with them to rescind the ballot initiative.
Look, I'd give up a little voter ID to stop this. I mean, voter ID is, at the end of the day.
I don't want to get ahead or speak for the governor and the legislative leaders. I know that the research is happening behind the scenes on going to the voters and say, hey, if Texas is doing this, can California do this as well? My gut sense, knowing California the way I do, that there's a lot of people in California who say, that's right, game on. And then how you draw those districts. Now, California, we would still do it, respecting the Voting Rights Act, but there's probably a way to, help offset what Texas is
more than
doing.
offset in California.
And the man you just heard there is joining me now, former Texas Congressman and 2020 presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke. He is the founder of the voter registration organization Powered by People. We're going to talk about where you are and what you're doing in a moment, Congressman, but you're not just condemning this Republican power grab. You're also telling Democrats to be ruthless and blue states like California, Illinois, and New York to carve out extra congressional districts ahead of the midterms. How do you envision this playing out, and are Democrats willing to fight fire with fire?
In Texas, we are. I think we're sick of reacting, responding, of even being part of the resistance, of being on defense instead of offense, on the back foot instead of the front one. And so we've got to take the fight to them. Here in Texas, that means supporting the Democratic legislators who might leave the state to deny their Republican colleagues a quorum in order to redraw these maps and steal these 5 congressional seats. But as you just alluded to, there are Democrats who control the legislatures in states across this country, and they can redraw their congressional districts, and they can do it first, seize the initiative, before Republicans in Texas have a chance to act. So instead of awaiting the other side to punch us in the face, we throw that punch first, and we throw it harder. I think Democrats have to get off of just being overly concerned about being right more than they care about being in power, and get back to caring about being in power so that we can use it to set this country right and help those people who are being hurt right now by Donald Trump.
Thing is, you are taking this fight national. You've been holding rallies, about a dozen or so in just the past 30 days. The fact is, you're in Pearland, Texas right now, that is just outside of Harris County, which is a very, very red county. And you're expecting, 600 people or so to show up at your next rally. You are not just warning about what's happening in Texas. Why do you say, though, that Democrats need to care more about being in power than being right? What is the party doing wrong?
I think the party, and look, not the people on the ground, not the activists, not the precinct chairs, not a lot of these great Democrats who are leading right now around the country, but the party as a whole for far too long has assumed that the courts, the Voting Rights Act, the norms that have made this the greatest country on the face of the planet over these 249 years are somehow going to hold. If nothing else, over the last 6 months, Donald Trump has blown all of that up. He's defied the co-equal federal courts. He has dismembered congressional chartered agencies and departments. He's colluded with corrupt public officials. And he's going to destroy what Lincoln called the last best hope of Earth unless we do all that we can right now. So, Alex, if he steals these 5 congressional seats, he might be able to hold the Republican majority in the House. That means there's no check on his lawlessness, no accountability for his crimes and his corruptions. And it is more likely than not that a Republican majority Congress will roll out the royal red carpet for a Trump third term. It's something that he's promised us he will do. His supporters want him to do it. And we saw what he did at the end of his first term when he incited violence and an insurrection to try to hold on to power illegally. So, we can either wait and watch and wonder and hope and pray, or we can take action and take the fight to them right now, everywhere, every county of Texas, including Brazoria, where we are today, and every state in the union.
I think it was Jasmine Crockett we heard preceding that soundbite from you, suggesting that they break quorum, that Texas Democrats do that, get out, potentially leave the state. To what effect? What do you hope happens by doing that? And is that the only option?
It's not the only option, but I think it's an important first step. If Texas State House Democrats leave the state, they'll deny their Republican colleagues the quorum or the numbers necessary to redraw and steal these congressional seats here in Texas. Now, it's not an easy proposition. They're going to be fined $500 a day. There will be a manhunt conducted for them by the state troopers here in Texas. And Alex, we can only imagine in Donald Trump's America how he will use federal law enforcement to pursue these brave Democrats. But if they do that, not only can they stop this gerrymandering, this process of Republican members of Congress choosing their own voters, but I think they're going to inspire other people who have been wanting to see Democrats stand and fight, because this comes at great personal risk to them. So I hope those who are watching, who care about democracy, regardless of your party, when you see them do this, please have their backs. They're going to need resources, they're going to need encouragement, and they're going to need the moral support to sustain this fight. And
what have I been saying? That Democrats are actually doing some fighting, and it's good to see. And this is the day that the Republicans lost deep red seats, because their plan to in total discordance with historical precedent to do another redistricting just 2 years after doing one, and not only doing that, but to do it in a way that effectively gives them another half dozen seats in Congress just from Texas alone, has gone too far. And now you see Democrats, including moderate Democrats. I want to make this clear. Moderate Democrats that used to not want to fight Republicans. Because I don't want to rip the Band-Aid off too much. But back in 2016, the Democratic Party seemed more eager to defeat Bernie Sanders than defeat Donald Trump. And what's happened in the last 10 years is that more and more Democrats, including some moderates, not all the moderates, but including some moderates, have started to realize that the Republicans are the real enemy, that you're not going back to this mythical age where the Republicans were reasonable. Like, that's not happening. So now they need to fight fire with fire. What you're seeing are people in Texas say this needs to happen, and people in the bigger states saying, we will change it. We'll get rid of independent redistricting. Because until such time that the Republicans actually play ball, we're not going to fight with you with one arm behind our back. You know what I mean? We're going to actually put up both our fists and get in it because we need to. And if the Democrats do that, the Republicans are in trouble, because the Republicans have more states, but most of the bigger states are Democratic, and they could be gerrymandered much more than they are. New York and California in particular, right? And so red state losses are going to come, purple state losses are going to come because of this. Guys, this is a big, big blow to Republicans. They push too much, and now the pushback is going to be hard. And the voters are going to smell the stink and blame the GOP.